episode 3 of my first time. Today we are making a gingerbread house. We're almost at Christmas, so I figured why not make a gingerbread house? I always wanted to do that when I was a little girl, but of course I grew up Amish, so that was not an option. I don't know why. And I've never done it since I left the Amish. Now I've watched little kids do it. I've watched so many videos of professional gingerbread house builders do it, but I've never actually made one myself. So this is our first time making a gingerbread house. We're gonna start by whisking together our dry ingredients, which I've never done that before, but I'm gonna follow this recipe because I've never made it before. We have some all-purpose flour. To our all-purpose flour, we have to add a whole bunch of spices, some baking powder, baking soda, and cinnamon and salt. Cinnamon is actually a spice too. We're adding spices by a tablespoon. That seems like a lot of cinnamon, but we're going with the recipe. Now we have some ginger and some cloves. It doesn't take quite as much cloves as cinnamon. It does take a lot of ginger, and I don't know if I have enough of it. Ginger's almost gone, but I had enough. Then we're going to add our baking soda, and the last of our dry ingredients is baking powder. Just a little FYI, get the Clapper Girl if you can, because it's aluminum free. If you can't get this, just check your bottle and try and get aluminum free. Now we're gonna whisk these dry ingredients together. This seems kind of funny, but I mean, I get the gist. You want to make sure it all mixed together. They smell amazing. It smells like Christmas in here. Now we're going to set these whisked together dry ingredients aside, and we're going to get started on our wet ingredients. We have some butter, and I had to soften it because I forgot to take it out of the fridge. So I cut it all up into cubes and tried cutting it up so it's soft. Just put that into your bowl, and then we're going to add brown sugar. And it says dark brown sugar, which I have. If I only had light brown sugar, that's what I'd use. It says to beat this together until it's light and fluffy, so I'm going to assume this is going to take a while because we are using dark brown sugar, and to get that light takes a little bit of beating. I think I beat this up until it is light, or I would call that probably about as light as it's going to get. So now we have to add our egg. We are also going to add vanilla, and we have some molasses. Now I'm using molasses from the store, which we always called blackstrap molasses. What we called molasses was molasses we actually made ourselves, which I think if you go to a grocery store, it is called cane syrup because it is not called molasses. This we would have called blackstrap molasses, but the recipe says molasses, so I'm assuming they mean this molasses. Just add that in as well. Also, in case you didn't know, it is very, very healthy and good for you to take 1 tablespoon of this molasses every single day. Mom used to make us do that. It has a lot of calcium in it, and it actually doesn't have as much sugar in it as you would think. You should look it up. I just bumped into my salt shaker, and it made me remember that I forgot to add salt to my dry ingredients, so I'm going to add that in there and whisk it in. Just give it a little whisk. It doesn't have to be anything serious. And then I'm going to mix the eggs and stuff into that cream together, butter and sugar. We have that all mixed in. Now it is time to gradually add our dry ingredients and just mix it in until a stiff dough forms. And I'm assuming I'm going to have to go in with my hands to make that happen. I did not have to go in with my hand, which surprises me. So now we're supposed to divide this dough into 2 equally sized balls of dough. So I guess that's what I'm gonna do. Now that we have 2 equally sized dough balls, I'm supposed to wrap each one in plastic wrap, which I have right here. One thing I'm learning with this series that I'm doing is that it is actually kind of fun to do modern cooking and baking and just taking your time and adding all the weird ingredients and doing it all the modern ways. Because at home we would not wrap our dough in plastic wrap to refrigerate it. We wouldn't even have a refrigerator. We'd just put it in a bowl and put a cover on it and stick it in the ice box. Now that we have both balls of dough wrapped up, we need to put it in the refrigerator to chill it for an hour at least. I'm guessing you can go a lot longer than an hour, but I'm going to do at least an hour. I made myself a little prototype of my gingerbread house out of paper and tape. So this is about the size the gingerbread house is supposed to be if it works out. And then I cut some extra pieces out of cardstock paper of all the shapes and sizes of everything. And in the recipe, when you guys go get it, which will be in my channel membership, whatever, when you go join my membership, I will have a picture that was all the dimensions, but you can't print it out and expect the dimensions to be the same after you print it out. So I'm just going to put all the measurements in there, and then you guys can draw your own little rectangles and stuff with the right measurements. I have our chilled dough right here, and I need to roll out one dough ball at a time, and I'm going to roll it out on here. I'm going to flour this and just roll it out on here so I can just cut the pieces out on here and bake them on here, because I do not want to attempt to move these pieces after I've rolled them out and cut them out. Flour your surface really well because this dough is kind of sticky, so it will stick to stuff. Now just roll your dough out to a 1/4 inch thick. Now that I have it all rolled out, I'm going to take my pieces. I'm going to do both ends, and this one of course has a hole for a window in the gable and then a door, and I'm also going to include a door in my gingerbread house, so I have to cut out an extra door as well. Then I'm also going to do the bottom piece. Lay your pieces on there and take a knife, make sure it is clean, and then just cut around the edges, and this works really well with a thin bladed sharp knife. I couldn't understand why you wouldn't cut these out after they're baked while they're still warm, but apparently if you do that, they're more apt to crack, so I'm going to cut them out before I bake them, and then while they're still warm, you can push the edges in to make sure it's the right size. I would also recommend cleaning your knife every so often in between cutting these out. Once you have that all cut out, take up your extra dough. It's sticky enough. I'm gonna go get one of my Rada spatulas to finish this. Also, this is the reason I didn't want to pick them up after I rolled them out, because I figured they'd be sticky. I finally precisely gotten all the dough out from around here, but now the paper is wanting to stick to this dough and I have to take it off. Also, for that window and the gable, I'm just going to use this tiny little cookie cutter. I think this is as good as it's gonna get. It is not going as smoothly as I envisioned it when I decided to make this video. I'm going to slide it onto this cookie sheet and we're going to bake it. Now it's time to do the second ball because we need 2 sides and 2 roof slants, and if I have enough left over, I'm going to make a little platform to put my gingerbread house on. This time I am flouring this thing very generously before I put my paper on to cut it out. Now I'm just going to cut along like I did for the other ones. Because these are roof slants, I need 2 of them, so I'm going to take my paper off right away. I'm actually going to put my roof slants right side by side so I don't waste any dough or space, because remember, I want a little platform to put it on if I can. Now for the sides, and yes, I'm doing cutouts for windows. To get the dough away from here, I always use this spatula, but because this spatula is too big to get the window cutouts out, I have this small spatula that I'm gonna use. I got it at an Amish store. I don't know what the brand is. Now as you can see, I don't have space to put the platform on here, so I'm just going to use some of my leftover dough and make a small platform yet and bake it separately. We're just gonna slide this onto our cookie sheet as well, and then this goes in the oven as soon as the other one comes out because my oven isn't big enough to put them both in at the same time. Our first pieces are done, and as you can see, they very much spread, so I'm just going to set them down, and I'm going to take my pieces of paper, these cutouts, and I'm going to lay it on top here and just push them in a little. I'm gonna be a little bit of a rebel and cut the edges off because it spread quite a bit. It's making me nervous for the ones I put side by side in the oven, but we'll deal with that when we get there. This actually seems to be working really well, so I'm going to change my recipe and just say to bake it and then cut it out because they haven't cracked or anything. It seems to be a lot nicer than to just bake them in their shape, which again, if I would have gone with my gut theory, that's what I would have done in the first place. But research says no. Now we need to let these cool off completely. They are almost cold, but they need to be completely cold. While that batch is cooling off, another one is baking, I'm going to roll out some of this scrap dough for a bottom platform. It doesn't have to be fancy because yes, I decided this time I'm going to cut it out after I bake it. And the reason I'm using parchment paper is because I don't have another one of those silicone mats. Just roll it out nice and thin, and I'm going to slide it onto this small cookie sheet, and I'm going to go stick it in the oven because the other ones just got done baking. And just as I expected, these things spread all over as well, so I'm going to just cut off of them. I've got them all beautifully cut out. It is working really well, and I've also been munching on these scraps. They're really good. They taste like gingerbread cookies. I'm gonna take these outside to cool them off with the other ones, and yes, I'm putting them outside because it is currently pretty cold in Texas. I've had this out of the oven for a couple minutes already. Now I need to cut out just a rectangle for the platform I want to put my little gingerbread house on. I have this 6" by 9" piece of cardboard, so that's what I'm going to use. You can use whatever size you want as long as it's bigger than the bottom of your gingerbread house. Now I'm going to take this outside and set it with the others to cool off. Now for the next step, we need to make royal icing, and I'm going to pull out my KitchenAid and use that one because you need to beat up some egg whites, and I don't want to stand here and do that right now. Just separate your eggs into the mixer bowl, or just put the whites into the mixer bowl. I'm just separating them over the mixer bowl. Now we're going to add some cream of tartar to those egg whites. And we're going to whisk this just until the egg whites are frothy. Once those egg whites are whisked up till they're frothy, we're going to gradually start adding our powdered sugar. I have all my powdered sugar added in now, and this is completely optional, but it says it's supposed to brighten it. Add a little bit of lemon juice. I'm not so worried about it being bright as it being edible, because I'm not convinced that this is going to taste the best. This stuff is done beating together now, so I guess our royal icing is done. I'm going to put it out into 2 piping bags. I think that lemon juice did brighten it because I used organic powdered sugar, so that stuff isn't quite as bright. This stuff is reminding me of sheetrock mud. I have this royal icing in my piping bags now, and I don't know if you guys remember or not, but we have windows on that gingerbread house, so I need glass for my windows. So I'm going to take some of this clear candy I got and put it in here and just melt it up. I think I underestimated how hard it is to melt those candies. So I ended up putting it in a bowl and putting it in a pot of water and then sticking it in the oven and try and melt it, and it is still kind of hard, but I'm going to try and put it in here and hope it levels out. I don't know, did I bite off more than I can chew, but I could not get those things to stay liquid enough to put them in there. So I just put a blob of some in each hole and in this one in our gable window. And now I'm gonna stick these in the oven and hope that they melt in there. I hope I'm not biting myself in the foot. These did not melt, but I was able to get them soft enough that I could just squish them down in there, so hopefully it'll work. But now we have to cool them off, and then we are finally ready to put this thing together. I've cooled the window pieces off. It isn't what I had envisioned, but it looks like it's going to work really well. To assemble it, I'm going to put snow on this thing first, and by snow I just mean icing. I'm going to spread it all evenly out. Now I'm going to put the bottom piece on top of that, and I'm going to turn the top baked part down. Now we're going to go on assembling. I am looking forward to this. I've never done it and I've always thought it would be so fun. I just piped some royal icing on there, and I'm going to set my end on there, and I'm just now thinking of the fact that I did not take into account for how I'm going to put this thing together, because it is a little thickness here. So I don't know how it's going to work. If I put them all on the outside, am I going to have gaps? If I try putting them all on the inside, is it going to be too big? So I'm going to have to figure that out yet. Put it on there and hold it until it dries in place. Then it's time to do the other one with the door. And for this, instead of putting it on here because we have a gap for the door, I'm just going to pipe it on the bottom here. Now for the sides, we want the height to come up to where this thing starts slanting. And because they're a little too long, they don't fit in here. Now I could cut them off, but they're already cold, so I think they would break. So instead what I'm going to do is just take a bunch of icing and pipe it on the bottom here, and then just set this on top of the icing and hope it almost reaches here. Just like that. Now we just set that on there. Oh bollocks, it is falling apart. I'm going to start completely over. I finally got this thing assembled except for the roof, and it needs to dry for a while before we put the roof on so it doesn't just collapse. So I'm going to decorate the roof a little bit to make it look like it has shingles. And yes, I'm going to have to do a lot of cleanup after that thing dries. Also, we have this door yet. I think that will be one of the last things I put up. I'm going to take my other bag of royal icing because I need a smaller hole. This is my first time shingling a roof, so it's not exactly perfect, but it will do the job. This is dried for a while now, and our tiles are dry, so I'm going to put the roof on here. I'm just going to start by squirting royal icing all along here. And then we just put one side of the roof on. Now it's time to do the other side. The roof is on. Now I'm going to start piping around the edges and just overall trying to make this look a little bit better. Alright, this is definitely not going to win any contests. I have to put the door on yet. I'm going to put it on so it's partly open. I also have a fly trying to help me out. This is what our gingerbread house looks like. I'm very pleased with it. It doesn't look as perfect as I thought it would, but it looks a lot better than some other first-time gingerbread houses I've seen. And now to top it all off, I'm going to make it snow a little with some powdered sugar. There, now we have some snow. And also, I don't plan on eating this. This is purely for entertainment purposes only, although it would be very edible because I have some of those scraps and they're very delicious. But yeah, this is what it looks like. The recipe is in my membership channel where you can go join or whatever, and then you have access to the recipe and everything. So I hope you guys try making your own gingerbread houses this winter instead of just going and buying the kits, because the homemade ones are good for eating and it is a very fun experience, especially if you have kids. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we will see you in 2 weeks in our next episode. Happy holidays!